In our first reading, Abram had a lot of legitimate concerns. What we didn't hear from that first reading was the fact that he was almost 100 years old. The fact that Sarah was 90 years old. The fact that in the Hebrew mentality, having children was of the utmost importance, and he still didn't have any. And Sarah was already barren. God was telling him that something impossible was going to happen. Because how could he have descendants so numerous as the stars in the sky when he didn't even have one child? How could he be sure that he was going to be given this land that God had promised him for these numerous descendants? And even if he was, what was it all for? Again, he had no child. Did you notice what time of day it was when God told him that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky? It didn't say it directly. You have to use context clues. I'm still using those from grade school. If you read the story very carefully, after God promises all these things to Abram, his name wasn't changed yet. Abram protected these sacrificial animals that he split into until nightfall. That means that God would have told him to go look out and count the stars of the sky during the middle of the day. In one sense, God was telling Abraham that you can't count the stars in the sky, not only because there are so many, but because you can't see them. But what you can count on is that I have said it will happen. That's what faith is. It's not something you can verify per se, but it's believing what you're being told is true because you trust the one who is telling it to you. St. Paul in the second reading reminds the Philippians of the things that he had told them, of the importance of following the example that they had been given, even though other examples might be more attractive. He's telling them that those who do not live for Christ are headed for destruction because their God is their stomach and their glory is in their shame. Because our goal is not something that is in this world. It's not something we can necessarily see. Our citizenship is in heaven, he said. And his is another voice that we can put our trust in. As important as having many descendants and a promised land was for Abram, we're being promised something even more important by Paul and by Christ. Another reality that we can't verify, that we can't necessarily see, because we're trying to count the stars in the middle of the daytime. We have another set of voices, 3 of them in fact, that verify for us something better that is yet to come, that again we can't see. Peter, James, and John are privileged to see Christ in his glory, even if it was only for a moment. That's something that we don't necessarily get to see. Because when we see Christ, it's under the appearance of bread and wine. But again, faith is putting our trust in those that have gone before us. We believe Paul. We believe that Peter, James, and John had this tremendous experience on the mountaintop, and they shared that with those that came after them, all the way down to us. We believe all that Jesus taught them. And so we have hope that our faith will not be in vain. We have hope that the sacrifices we make on this earth to try to follow Christ more closely have eternal benefits for that citizenship that we have in heaven. That's why my life as a celibate is important, as an example. That's the reason I became a priest. Because even in those moments where I can't see the stars or even try to begin to count them, faith tells me that this is all for a purpose. I'm looking for something better than even having numerous descendants or a homeland. Even though both of these things are extremely beautiful and worthwhile endeavors. No matter what your walk in life is, remember that your citizenship is in heaven. And use your Lenten season to focus more intently on that.